Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you. What an absolute pleasure to be here. Quick question, who here owns a Ferrari? Seriously, not a single one. A couple of weeks ago, I saw something that you don't see every single day. It was an accident between a Ferrari and a VW Golf. By the time that I arrived, the VW Golf was on one side of the road, and it was a little shorter than it was meant to be originally. And on the other side of the road was this, what used to be a 6'3" gleaming red Ferrari, but was now a 4'2", slightly more crunchy Ferrari. And you drive past that and you think to yourself, that's a really bad day for some wealthy individual. And it's not something you see every day. So I pulled my car over and I put a little comment on Facebook and I said, let's have a moment of silence for the mighty fallen, never again to go from 0 to 100 in 6.3 or 3.6 seconds. And the reaction that I got from some of my friends on Facebook was interesting. People said, they didn't say things like, oh, what a shame, what a pity, oh, what a loss. They said, serves him right. And the hatred just kept on coming, one comment after another. How can he drive a car like that in a country like this? Our roads are wrong for it. He was probably drunk. One person stopped just short of accusing him of being a child molester. And it was fascinating to me just to see the level of hatred aimed at this Ferrari driver. Now, here's the interesting bit about it. The only information that I had put on Facebook was, there has been an accident between a Golf and a Ferrari. That's it. We don't know who was wrong. We don't know if it was the Golf driver who made the mistake. We don't know if a dog didn't run across the road and cause this thing. But what was interesting is it showed up a belief system that most of us don't even know we have. It's a bias against the rich. It's fascinating. Now, in a room like this, we are all studying and working toward building careers, building futures, becoming high net worth individuals. Let me ask you a question. Do you reckon you can become a high net worth individual at the same time as hating wealthy people? It's a self-limiting belief, and it actually gets in the way. But what's fascinating is that the kind of thinking that is handed down to us from generation to generation is invisible. It was once beautiful, wasn't it? And I'm not the only person who's actually seen this in motion. Anybody here watch Top Gear? Yes, yeah, absolutely. Top Gear fans, join me for a moment here. The rest of you can just go to sleep. Jeremy Clarkson says, in the United States, you watch a person drive by in a Bentley, and the reaction is, one day I'll be in one of those. And he says it's different in Britain. He says in Britain, you watch a guy drive past in a Bentley and you say, one day I'll have him out of that. That's a bit more sinister, isn't it? A little bit darker. And it's really interesting because particularly in South Africa, we have spent decades trying to unravel a belief system about racism that's been handed down from generation to generation. But we are not aware of other beliefs that are handed down to us, particularly beliefs about wealthy people. And here we all are chasing these goals and chasing these lives while at the same time feeling uncomfortable about talking about money or talking about wealthy people as though they are obviously evil, they come from the devil. Let's take a look at how this thinking is created, how it's generated, how it's handed down from generation to generation, and how it can stop you from achieving your goals. The point is to unravel it, get it out of our minds, excise it, be rid of it, be free of it, so that we can actually chase the goals that we have in life and become all God intended us to be. In my family, if you go back 2 generations to my grandmother, she used to work at an English manor house in Manchester. Has anyone here ever watched the show on TV, quite a mature show called Downton Abbey? Anyone seen it? No? Okay. The basic idea is you've got 2 sets of people. You've got the higher class folks who own this abbey. They're kind of semi-royalty in the United Kingdom. Then you've got the people downstairs who run everything. They do the cooking, they do the sweeping, the cleaning. It's the staff. My grandmother was part of the manor house, but she was not the people upstairs. She was the people downstairs. She was one of the maidservants who helped to keep this manor house clean. And if you had to see pictures of the way that they dressed at the time, it was the full old-style regalia. She had the little apron and the little maid's outfit and the little feather duster, and it's everything we think of as slightly kinky today. But of course, at the time, it was nothing like that. This was a woman who worked incredibly hard from dusk till dawn. This was a woman whose back was sore more often than not. This was a woman who, if you ever met her and put your hands on her hands, you'd find nothing but calluses. And most importantly, this was a woman who had no voice in the face of authority. Because the thinking back then, for both the lower classes and for women, was keep quiet, don't make waves, be a cog in the system. We don't want to know that you exist. We just want to see that your job gets done. And this is the kind of thinking that is then handed down from generation to generation. And what's interesting is that when my dad came along, my grandmother was looking for the best advice she could possibly give to him about work and wealth and how to make your way in the world. She went rummaging around in her mind and she came up with this gem, and it was the advice she gave to my dad. She said, "My son, get a trade. That way you will never starve to death." Who here has heard some variation of that advice? Yeah? Okay. A lot of us have heard things down those lines. There's nothing wrong with getting a trade. You can become a plumber and you can become very wealthy as a plumber. But listen to the second half of that sentence. Did she say, so that you can become all God intends you to be? Is it so that you can let your light shine, so that you can become wealthy, so that you can achieve goals? No, it's so that you never starve to death. The thinking comes from a place of desperation. And that's the thinking that's handed down generation to generation. And the weird part is, it's completely invisible to us. We hear this advice and we think it's right and we think it's normal. Now, I'm not picking on my grandmother. She was doing the best she could with the ideas that she had, without perhaps knowing how much damage it can do to future generations. Take a look at the building you see behind me there. That is an Industrial Revolution era factory. It's about 100, maybe 120 years ago. What other building that we have today looks very similar to that factory? Out loud, what do you think? Hospitals, what else? Schools, okay? Schools, and here's an interesting one, are run according to the Industrial Revolution age of thinking. Picture this for a second. You drop your kids off at school, or you as a child are dropped off at school, and you line up in neat lines, and the foreman, I mean the teacher, blows the whistle or rings the bell, and in your neat lines you go to your workstation and you sit down. You sit down at your little workstation and you work for a number of hours. And then the foreman, I mean the teacher, blows the whistle, rings the bell, and you take out your little lunchbox and you can have some food. Then the whistle goes again, you go back into your workstation, you sit down. It is run according to an Industrial Revolution era factory. Why? Because we are training human beings to be cogs in a system. And we're still doing it. Okay? Now, I'm not picking on schools here. The point is not to say that schools are badly run. The point is just to say we have thinking that is invisible to us. We are trained to thought, and we are culturalized to act in certain ways that no longer make sense in the modern economy. The old world thinking says, become a cog in a system, fit in, don't make waves, and if you're a perfect cog, you'll get your little bit of money at the end of the day and you can go home. That thinking will keep you poor. So, what are some of the alternatives? Well, that's what I'd like to look at with you here today. I like to call that style of thinking the wheelbarrow way. It basically goes like this. It's like the parents get hold of their child, the young son, the young daughter, and they say, my son, my daughter, you are young and strong. You must go out into the world and earn coins. Here's how you do it. Pick up your wheelbarrow, load it full of bricks, and for every hour that you push your wheelbarrow, you will get 1 coin. If you want a second coin, you have to push your wheelbarrow for a second hour. Now, we think like that. We go, the only way to earn coins is to work for a set number of hours, so let me go and get a job and be dependent on a boss. Now, you work your set number of hours every day. You push your wheelbarrow for your set number of hours, and a horrible thing starts to happen. You start to realize that you can't quite afford the car. You're not quite breaking even with the kids and their education and the debit orders and the bonds and so on. So what do? You go back to the thinking that was handed down to you, and you say, if I'm not getting enough coins, what do I have to do? I have to push a second wheelbarrow in the evenings to get more coins. That kind of thinking keeps families in generational cycles of poverty. If you take nothing else away from today, this is the one principle that is the most important. Do not tie your earning to the number of hours you work. You've got to separate those two. And I'll show you how today. But so long as we think a number of hours equals a number of coins, we are in financial trouble. Because as a human being, you only have so many hours in the day. The wealthy person's epiphany, the way of breaking out of this idea is this. Dump the bricks in your wheelbarrow. Get rid of them. Load your wheelbarrow up with gold. In other words, for every hour that you push that wheelbarrow, you need to raise the value of your work. Earn more coins per hour, not work more hours in order to get more coins. Does that make sense? Okay. Of course, that raises some interesting questions. Now, how the heck do you do that? There are definitely ways of doing it. What are some of the things that our families teach us about work and about wealth and about how economies work? And once again, it's not to say that they are trying to do damage in our lives. They are doing the best they can with the thinking handed down to them. But the world has changed. What are some of the things that they teach us? Work hard. There's nothing wrong with working hard. I believe in working hard. But the goal is actually to make money, not to work hard. And there is a very big difference there. In certain companies, people think you are fantastic if you are working hard, not necessarily if you are being effective. So what they do is people make a show of the number of hours that they work, how they work over weekends, how they're part of every meeting. They're not necessarily getting stuff done, but they're showing that they're working hard. Yeah, that's the difference. The next thing is play it safe. Play it safe. Wealthy people take risks all the time. The middle classes and poor folks take no risks at all. In fact, I heard a phrase the other day that's just been resonating in my mind that says, the middle classes are paralyzed by doubt. They are secure to the point of paralysis. They do not take risks. And of course, the thinking handed down there is get a safe job and let someone else take care of you. Be like everyone else. Here's an obvious thing that has to be said. If you be like everyone else, you're going to earn like everyone else. If you choose the safe route in life, you are choosing to earn less than you potentially could.